Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hall podcast. This podcast is episode number 5. I'll be your host today, Ryan King. And with me, I have Leo Ciarrocchi, also known as Fluffy, one of our business agents. Hello.
Hello, Ryan. Nice to be here, mate.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, Leo. So let's start. How'd you get into the trades?
Well, that's a long story, actually. It goes back a number of years. Actually, as you can tell from my accent, I actually grew up in a different part of the world. I grew up in London, southeast London. Oh, dragged up would be a better word for it. When I left school, I actually aspired to be an electrician for Carriage Brewery, which was a large brewery in the UK. And I was an apprentice electrician for 2 years, until that sort of went sideways through the circumstances of my own doing. And long story short, I was always in construction. I did a number of different things. I held a number of offices. I was actually, at one point in my career, I had a varied career in the UK. I was an apprentice, a trainee rigger for the BBC, which problem was back then I was very young and my FU was very high, right? So I didn't tolerate I tolerated having more fun more than a career. It wasn't until I met my wife and I came to Canada that I actually seriously looked at the trades and took on a lot of responsibility. And when I got to Canada, I ended up working with a bunch of Italians from North Burnaby, which got me into the trade and moved me on. And that's led to me where I am today, actually.
So where did you go to school at as an apprentice?
I actually went to school in Canada, in Vancouver, PVC.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't, as I said, I started an apprenticeship in the UK, but because of my boyish nature, being younger, I never really kept a job for too long. I was too rebellious, would be the word, and irresponsible back then.
So you're a steam fitter by trade.
Yeah.
What made you choose steam fitting?
That's a good question, actually. I don't really know. With the pipe trades, I think no one really knows. Unless you have a relative, a father or a brother which is in the pipe trades. I believe the pipe trades is something you wander into.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think they're going to be a plumber or they're going to be a steam fitter or a pipe fitter or unless they have a relative in the trade.
Yeah.
I think it's something you just sort of find your way, and before you know it, you wake up one day and you're an apprentice and you're in the trades.
Yeah.
I believe joining the union was one of the best things I ever did in my life.
Yeah.
I actually think the union, the friendship, the camaraderie, especially on the industrial side. I would imagine it's similar in the commercial, but not as strong as the industrial, because in the industrial side you're travelling from around the province or around the country, and that bond is strong, right?
Yeah.
And it's like family to me. I left my family and friends back in the UK, and the union and the brotherhood and the sisterhood become my family.
So how long have you had your red seal for now?
I've had my red seal for 23, 24 years.
So you've been on a lot of jobs in that time.
Yeah.
Any one job that sticks out in your mind as a good job, or just?
Well, I remember numerous jobs for numerous different reasons. Some were extremely funny and we had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Some were well-paying jobs where we worked a lot of overtime, and some were just the feats or the engineering or the work we did where it was above the normal, or it was difficult, or it was spectacular. With Brightmark, I did the dumpers with the ironworkers from '97. A lot of hydraulic work. It was very specialised, and watching the '97 boys lift some of the lifts they did, phenomenal. The flare stack, I've done that twice. Once I did it myself, then I supervised the second time. Mm-hmm. And watching the young men and women which I've worked with over years take on the role, where before they were apprentices, one young chap in the end, I said, this is your turn to do the lift. You've earned it. Pass the torch over. He did it, and now he's on to bigger and better things. But learning and passing the skills we learn on to the others and giving them a chance is which eventually will pay for our pensions as well. It's a great feeling, right?
You talk about camaraderie and building all these bonds and friendships. There's nothing better than doing something that's hard, right? So you're on a job, you have this massive project, and you guys all soldier through it, and you come out the end, and you're like, look what we built, look what we did. And then you're coming back years after to do service, maintenance, shutdown work, and you still all look at the core group of guys, and you're like this wasn't here before we got here, and we built this. And what a better way to build that camaraderie and that bond.
Absolutely, the satisfaction when you look back and look what you did. I used to one of my things I used to love doing is I was very lucky. I worked with some extremely talented individuals. Right, I learned a lot from the superintendents, the GFs, the foremans which I worked with, and it was the banter backwards and forwards. Yeah. My nickname on site was Fluffy, as you've mentioned earlier, and like I'd get told, that's going to take you all day to put that in. And I'd say, like, I'll come and fab it all up, we'll get it in. And we'd argue the point. And I'd say, how much you give us to get that in? We'll get it in by lunchtime. I put a 6-pack on that. Let's put a 2-4 on that. We'll get that in, right? and yeah, sometimes
another form of currency there.
Sometimes we won and sometimes I lost, but it was always a lot of fun doing it, especially when you could prove you could get it done, right?
Yeah.
It showed your skill level. It showed the work we did. But an important thing, I know I did a lot of rigging, but I didn't do the rigging. The rigging was done with the crew.
Yeah.
It was a union crew. Everybody on that crew had a say. Mm-hmm. I would listen to the first year apprentice. I'd listen to everybody. Like, I would be the point guy because if I was the foreman, I would be the point guy to make the call because it would be my responsibility. But I listened to everybody. One day there was a lift which was really awkward, and I'd gone over it with my supervisor, who's retired now, and I said, Danny, I don't know where we're going to get this in. I said, I'm looking at it. I can't see it going in the way it's fabricated. Mm-hmm. It ain't going to go in.
Yeah. And
we went over it. We got one of the GFs over, Mark Lerman. And these guys have been around for years. These were very talented individuals.
Yep.
And we were blown away. We couldn't think of a way to get it in. A first-year apprentice who had just joined the union, had just got on the claim, he said to me, Fluffy, we can get this. I know how we can do this. I said, what? He said, I know we can get this. This is what we can do. As soon as he pointed it out, I was like, bingo, this is phenomenal. Right? I went to Danny, I went to my superintendent, I said, we got it. We do this, this and this, it'll go in. He's like, he said, that's amazing. I went, it's outstanding. I said, that wasn't me, Danny. That was that first year apprentice who just started.
Yeah.
I passed that on. That kid's never looked back. You give credit where credit's due.
Absolutely.
You give everybody a chance. You never give someone a job to do you wouldn't do yourself. Right? Yeah. That's how it's, and you treat everybody how you'd like to be treated. And I think you can't go wrong.
I used to always tell the guys working together with me, I'm like, I will never, under any circumstances, ever ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself. The only caveat to that is I'll do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, it's well, the crew is greater than the sum of all its parts, right?
That's
so
right.
when you if as a leader or as a foreman, general foreman, whatever, or just as a member of the team, having that open mind that just because this individual is new or an apprentice or has some kind of label attached to him doesn't mean that they don't have value, right? And it's nice that with your crew, they had the ability to speak up and talk, but everyone actually was there and receptive to listen, right? So that's huge.
Yeah, it is, and actually now you've said that, I've completely lost my train of thought. I've gone off on a tangent.
Well, that's all right, Leo, because I haven't lost my train of thought. So you've been on the tools for a while.
Yeah. One
day, someone says, "What? You should run for BA." How does that come
how did that come into play? Well, actually, I didn't expect to actually be a BA. What happened? The story is a few years ago, I was getting involved, and as I said, I'm pretty boisterous. I'm pretty vocal about my feelings. We lost our double time on Saturdays. The industrial side did about 4 years ago. which really upset me, upset most of the industrial board. So I decided to get involved. First, I ran for the e-board, and I got on the e-board. I was surprised I got on the e-board. And then one of the boys, this last time I ran, said, "You should run for business agent." And I said, "Well, I don't know." And I thought to myself, to be honest with you, I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to get in. I even nominated a bunch of other people, which I thought wanted it. Yeah. I wanted to be on the conference board because that was the conference board deals with negotiations, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to see what was going on. And well, I got the conference board, but on the side note, I actually got the business agent's job. And wow, and what a job this is. This job is everything you can think of and more. Anything to do with the union, every aspect, from contracts to looking after members to the regular stuff you would think, like the pay scale, I'm missing hours. It covers the whole facade of human emotions, tragedy, you name it. And the business agents are at the cutting edge, right at the point, right? We're the first line of contact, which is good in some ways, and in some ways, as I've mentioned to you before, it can be pretty upsetting as well.
Yeah, yeah. You wear a few different hats aside from just a hard hat at that role.
Yeah, I've had to deal with, as you know, I've mentioned before, which. I've had to deal with attempted suicides. I've had to deal with overdoses. I've had to deal with death, bereavement. We get called for everything what possibly could happen to a member. Funny enough, we're one of the first people they phone. At first, I was shocked. I wasn't expecting I knew the job had a lot of sides to it, but I really wasn't expecting what I had to take on.
Well, you would imagine some of the phone calls you would have made to BAs in the past when you were on the job, right? And so now flip the script, right? Now you're the one receiving those calls. So you got young Fluffy calling you about XYZ, right?
Oh, exactly. But actually, though, I never used to have to phone the hall that much. I used to phone Mark to find out what was going on or work, but Mark Glazer, the other business agent. But generally, I dealt with everything. We dealt with it on site. Most of the time, my problems was with my mouth and insubordination. So if I told someone to F off, I pretty much knew there's a good chance I'd be gone. But that was the responsibility I took when I told someone to F off, right? So if I was gone, then fair enough, I put my name on the board. If I was a foreman and I got demoted because I said something I shouldn't have done, that goes with the territory.
It helps you be sympathetic when you get that, that type scenario comes in where someone calls and says, hey, this guy did whatever, said whatever, and you're like, okay, yeah, no, I can
relate to it.
I could understand that, all right.
Yeah. I can relate to it, and yeah, I have a large nose, and I've cut this nose off on numerous occasions. I've cut my nose up to spite my face, because people like to say you say what you mean, and what you see is what you get, right?
Yeah.
I got barred from Chevron, the refinery, for a few years because I went up against one of the operators. He was bullying, he was harassing, right? I got into a toe-to-toe with him. I knew I was gone, but at the time, just because I knew if I said something I would be gone, didn't mean I still had to say something. Someone had to say something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that goes with the territory. Now I'm older, I'm more relaxed.
A little wiser?
No, not wiser, no, just older.
So in your role, you've been a business agent now for 2 years?
Coming up to 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
So what are some of the wins that you've had in this role thus far?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question, actually. I've got nothing to compare it with, so I'm not sure. But I have caught union contractors using non-union contractors to do fabrication. We have, which was a big one. After I warned them and called them once, give them benefit of that, and we caught them. I've done that twice now. One of them contractors now is a union contractor. As I have signed up 3 contractors in the last 2 years, with the potential of another one close coming in. I think I have helped out a lot of people. There is no training for this job. There is no book. There is you do what you believe is right for the members, and you go ahead with conviction. I think I've done a lot of good. I've won a lot of grievances. I've pulled in a ton of grievances. My biggest battle was the camp up in Terrace Hospital for Modern Niagara, PCL camp. The camp was illegal. It wasn't in the eyes of BC. It didn't even exist. That fight is still going on, but over the last year or so, we've bashed them to the point where now the food is now improved considerably. The accommodation is improved. It's clean. They got busing into town, but it was a fight. It was a fight, but that's what the union's here to do, right? To look after our members. Safety is another big one. We deal with a lot of safety issues. It's not just about your pay. If you're working in an environment and it's unsafe, let us know.
Well, the pay means nothing if you can't go to work to make that pay again, or if you die on a workplace accident, the pay means nothing at that point, right? So we pride ourselves on being safe and working safe, and it's everyone's responsibility to point out safety infractions as they see them or come across them.
Absolutely, and normally the infractions are not deliberate. What happens? I've just been dealing with a few in a shutdown, which is going on in the Kootenays right now. Normally the union members, and it's not just our trade; it can be like the other trades as well. They start getting tired, fatigue sets in. They start cutting corners. Or they don't bother to go and check if anyone's in that plant where they're going to fly over. It doesn't sound like a big deal to them at the time because they're tired. Oh, no one's going to be in there. But yeah, sometimes there is, and if something goes wrong, there's a price to pay, right? So I've just dealt with this weekend actually, and I've made a few phone calls, a couple of emails, and it's all sorted out. But people need to be reminded, right?
So in that role as business agent, so basically you're looking after members' rights and comforts, and from safety to finances to bullying and harassment to there's no brackets on the scope of work per se.
No, so you go from a tradesperson, which is used to working on high lines and climbing around, to a desk where you're acting like a social worker to some members. You're dealing with health and welfare. You're dealing with OH&S, safety concerns. You name it, you run the gauntlet. And I'd never really used a computer until I got in. I was given a computer I'm one finger typing. I'm learning. I've improved. Touch wood a lot better than I did a year ago, but it's...
You're up to 50 words a minute now, aren't you?
Well, let's not go that far. I'd say more like about five or 10 letters a minute. But no, through necessity, you have to improve, right?
Yeah.
The job is... some people, I know the members think we just sit around all day drinking coffee, because that's the perception they get if they come into the hall. They see us at our desk, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. And I was I was one of the ones who was pretty sceptical towards the other business agents before I got into the position, and then I realised, oh my God, this is a lot of work. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. But yeah, it's rewarding when you can do something to help people.
Yep.
And you can pick someone up and get them straight, or you can get them into rehab, and you can get them back on the straight and narrow. It's very rewarding. When you hear of our members doing something really good, it makes me proud, right? Like they do something which is very difficult to do. They pull something off. They do an amazing feat with piping or whatever. Yep. It's great to hear. You hear positive feedback's excellent.
And those types of situations, those stories, echo through the hall, from the school to the organizing department upstairs. When something good happens out in the field, generally we hear about it. It takes a bit of time, but it comes around, and everyone gets that feeling. Everyone gets that kind of pride, like, our guys are, our guys are winning out there, right? They're doing good work. They're, and they're, by doing that good work, they're paving the road for the future, because the future guys coming in, apprentice guys, girls, it's paving the way for them to have jobs available to them when they go forward, because everyone's going to remember, oh, this project was done, it was done all union, they did a great job. And when another project comes up, they're naturally going to look and go, no, we're going to have the union guys do this work, right? Because it went off without a hitch last time, and so it creates that future for everyone by doing good right now.
Well, and you pass the baton on, and them youngsters which are coming up now, which are hopefully our members take the time to teach them, our future pension providers down the road, right?
Yeah.
We're only as good as our weakest link. We need so the guys would need help. The thing that I found on site in the past, which is probably still relevant today, if you don't know something, you should ask. You have to ask.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't say nothing, people will assume that you know this task or that task. Yep. And the saying used to be, there's no dumb questions, right? There's no silly questions. It's a amount of things I don't know.
There's some power in being humble and having that humility to say, hey, I've never done this before, and I think people are surprised at how often someone is, instead of being, oh, you dumbass, or they're going, oh, okay, let me show you, right?
That's right. And we're only as strong as our weakest link. We pick everybody up and move forward, then it makes us all better, right?
Yeah.
No, it's I'm 2 years in. I think the job is 24/7. It feels that way sometimes. When the shutdowns are on, I feel like I'm on the shutdown.
Yeah.
I think I'm
vicariously
living
through them.
I'm living through the shutdown. Yeah. So it's normally a sign of, it's a nice sign when the shutdowns are done and no one's been hurt. I did earlier this year spend time in the hotels dealing with some of our members, sick members. COVID was a massive.
So you coming into your term, you would have been, basically your first 2 years of it were COVID.
It was COVID, and as I said, I didn't know. I was asking the other business, is this normal? Is this stuff normal, what is going on? Because the bullying and harassment was through the roof, but I had nothing to relate it to, so I thought, surely this is not normal. And I was told, no, it's high. And I was bringing it up at the union meetings as well, right? Be decent, think about each other, be considerate.
Everyone was wound up pretty tight.
Everyone was wound up, and so it took. As I said, I wasn't sure if this was the norm, especially on the commercial side. But it wasn't the norm. I know that now because the bullying and the harassment has dropped right off, thankfully. Yeah. Now the issues have changed. Now the issues are not so much, as you well know, being an organiser, the issues now are not so much the attitude and bullying and harassment on site. It's now where do we get the bodies to put on the site, right?
Yep.
But it's a good position to be in now. We've got plenty of work.
It's a good problem to have. It's of course from the organizing front. We're always looking for new people, new members, right? And we have all kinds of different plans and ways to approach that. But part of having the culture, if you will, that's a huge thing. I've talked to more and more people coming into the hall or that are inquiring about it. It's kind of sitting down and kind of ask them questions, and part of it is we want to kind of have what you have, right? I see a lot of members or new members coming in that are working on large scale projects in other trades, and they see how our guys work together, how our crews function, and a lot of time, depending on what job they're doing, they're kind of included in the crew. They're helping out at some capacity, or they're kind of on the outer edges of it, and they get my phone number from someone on site, or they get the website or whatever, and they call and say, hey, I'm doing this at whatever site, but I've been talking with the guys, and it seems like you guys got something really good going on there. How do I be a part of that? And then it's by having that culture and by our members being who they are and kind of pushing the good word of what we do and how we do it, and then you know, it comes from the top down, right? You hear everything in life is leadership, right? So you know, if you're working good with, you know, guys on the site, and then, you know, the foreman looks after the journey persons. The journey persons are, you know, being inclusive of the apprentices, and it just spreads, right? And it spreads in a good way that
it does, and
helps us all.
I get that. The foreman and the supervision are only as good as the crews they got working for them, right? The manpower they have, it's the rank and file are what make the job or break the job, right?
Yeah.
And well, engineering also has can have something to do with that as well. But no, we're in a good spot. We've got lots of work ahead of us. We're in the middle of negotiations, which is where I'll be going straight after this. They're playing hardball at the moment, but I think we're going to come out with a good agreement down the road here, and I think the future's looking friendly for us, right? Yeah. Looking bright. I think the rest. It seems like Afterworld's going into recession, but we've got a lot of government money and work coming up, so I think we're in a good spot to ride it out.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. Just listening to you talk here and seeing your progression into the hall, and, you know, coming off the tools. I encourage a lot of new members. You know, a lot of time I'm dealing with people that are coming in fresh. You know, these are new, and I encourage everyone, when you're a member of the hall, you're a member. It's equal opportunity for everyone. So I encourage people to come to the meetings. You know, raise your hand if you have a question. Step to the mic if you have a concern. Be respectful of one another, and volunteer to sit on a board or sit on a panel. Right? If you want to have some influence, that's the way to do it.
100%, actually 200%. It is your hall. It is the members' hall.
Yep.
If they don't like something, go to the meeting, voice it up. There's no point in just sitting there on Facebook and saying, "Yeah, I don't like that." That's what I used to do. I've backed up what I used to do and move forward. But especially the younger guys and girls, if they don't like it, go to the hall, complain about it, work to get it changed.
Yeah.
Get the bylaws in. Get active.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you really take an interest, go on the e-board. Run for one of the boards, like you were saying. And then maybe, if you still don't like, run for a BA's position. Yeah. This job, though, is a lot more work, and I realise. But it would be we need young blood in the positions. If you look around at everyone in charge at the moment, we're all pretty old. There's no youngsters there. It would be nice to get some younger people moving up to fill them positions.
Just like the job site, right? There's got to be some progression. People coming up, you kind of
absolutely
pass the torch, right? So
yeah.
I know you got meetings to go to. I can see your phone going.
That phone
crazy.
is lighting up like a Christmas tree as we speak, right?
So I'd like to thank you, Leo, for coming on, and maybe next time we'll get into why they call you Fluffy, maybe
we'll put something in the cup a little bit more stronger in the coffee.
And I thank you for your time. I know you're extremely busy.
That phone is going.
We've kind of snuck in here to get this done. So with that, I say thank you, everyone, for listening to the Hall Podcast. Please follow us at the Hall Podcast, and everyone, thanks for listening, and have a good evening.
Yeah.